MOOC on human rights in India. Over a course of this module and the coming module, we will take up the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. Before we go further, let me outline the learning objectives for this module. Who are these tribals? What are their human rights issues? What is the mandate of the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes? What is the structure and functions of the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes? And can we make a critical assessment of the performance of the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes? Now, first let us take up who are these people called tribals. Historically, some communities had been living mainly in forests, remote hilly areas, which are generally cut off from the rest of the society for generations together, and had been leading a unique life which is intertwined with their habitat, intertwined with their ecosystem. They are attached to their land, they are attached to their traditional ways of culture, religion, and as a result of the disconnect with the rest of the population, they had been facing social backwardness, they had been facing certain other issues. And in fact, when our country became independent and after the adoption of the Constitution of India, in fact, if you look at Article 341 and 342, certain communities have been designated as tribals and are requiring further support by the state. What are their human rights issues? As we discussed, they had been leading a secluded life away from the rest of the society, and because of the geographical disconnect, because of the poor infrastructure, they had been facing social and economic backwardness. And if you look at the literacy levels of tribals, in particular their women, there is a big gap between the general population on the one hand and the scheduled tribes on the other hand. Same is the case with the enjoyment of the right to health. And they had been practicing some primitive agricultural practices like cut and burns or slash and burn or june cultivation. All of this had been contributed to a series of violations. In fact, the areas inhabited by them are rich in mineral resources, rich in water resources, and there had been many developmental projects, be it mega dams, be it industrial projects, be it mining projects. Some of them had displaced these persons belonging to tribal communities without any worthwhile relief and rehabilitation effort. Land alienation is a major issue regarding or faced by the persons belonging to scheduled tribes. In fact, and land related distress, land related unrest is a major contributory factor to the left-wing extremism which has affected a number of parts of the country. In other words, if you look at the tribals with poor socio-economic development, with social economic backwardness, had faced a number of important human rights challenges. And for this reason, the framers of our Constitution in the Article 46 dealing with the directive principles of state policy have clearly mentioned that the state shall promote with a special interest, the economic interests, the educational interests of backward classes of citizens, and in particular those belonging to scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and prevent social injustice and all forms of exploitation. Article 46, which tries to take care of the educational and economic interests of tribals, is a very important article, and the state is required to keep it constantly in view while preparing legislations. Now, let us come to the background to the setting up of the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. Soon after the Constitution came into being, a special officer was created by the government to review the safeguards provided in the Constitution and other laws for tribals, and that's how the Commissioner for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes was created. Subsequently, a need was felt for moving from a single member body to a multi-member national level advisory body, and that's how in the year 1987 a national level advisory body was created. Subsequently, through a constitutional amendment in 1992, the National Commission for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes was created. And in the year 2004, again through another constitutional amendment, these two have been separated into a separate national commission dealing exclusively with the scheduled castes, and a separate national commission exclusively dealing with scheduled tribes. Now, let us turn our attention to the functions of the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. I invite your attention to the following graphic, which deals with the functions of the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. In Article 338A, Class 5, the functions of the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes have been detailed. It says that the Commission shall review the safeguards provided under the Constitution and other laws and make recommendations for their implementation. The Commission, which is a constitutional body whose origins are mentioned in the Constitution of India, is also required to inquire into individual complaints from tribals relating to the deprivation of their rights and other safeguards. The Commission is required to submit a report to the President of India once in a year or at such intervals as it may deem fit on the working of various constitutional and other legislative safeguards, and giving its recommendations for better implementation of various measures. Now, if you look at this graphic further, the functions of the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes have been further expanded, amplified by the Ministry of Tribal Affairs through a government order. The ministry has asked the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes to handle certain activities in relation to the protection, welfare and development and advancement of the scheduled tribes, particularly relating to ownership rights in respect of minor forest produce, to STs living in forest areas, rights of tribal communities over mineral resources, water resources, livelihood strategies, relief and rehabilitation measures for tribal peoples displaced by developmental projects. As I mentioned earlier on, to address issues relating to alienation of tribal people from their traditional land and rehabilitate such people in case alienation has already taken place, involvement of tribals in protecting forests and social afforestation, and take measures for implementation of the provision of Panchayat Extension to Scheduled Areas Act 1996 and reduce and ultimately eliminate the practice of shifting cultivation by tribals that lead to their continuous disempowerment and degradation of land and environment. Further, under Clause 9 of Article 338A, the Union government and every state government is required to consult the National Commission for Scheduled Tribe on all major policy matters affecting STs. Dear students, we have already seen the functions that have been entrusted to the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes under the Constitution of India, under the orders of the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. Now, it also has been given certain powers in order to discharge the functions given to it, particularly in relation to complaints while handling, let's say, violation of rights, etc. The National Commission for Scheduled Tribes has the powers of a civil court trying a civil suit. It can ask for any report, it can summon people, it can record evidence on affidavits and do a number of things in order to redress the complaints that have been sent to it. The Commission cannot entertain complaints which are sub judice in any other legal forum or complaints which have already been decided by a court of law. While dealing with individual complaints of human rights violations faced by persons belonging to scheduled tribes, the National Commission for ST basically checks whether FIRs have been properly filed and all the accused persons have been named or not, whether investigation has been properly conducted by the police officers concerned, particularly the Prevention of Atrocities Act requires that some senior police officers shall go into or shall investigate these violations faced by the tribals, and whether special public prosecutors have been appointed and whether these cases are being dealt with by special courts as required under the Prevention of Atrocities Act, and whether medical assistance has been given to victims, whether compensation has been paid to the victims. This in a sum talks about the individual complaints mechanism under the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. Now let us look at the organizational structure of this commission. It has its headquarters in New Delhi. It has a number of regional offices in different parts of the country which act as a bridge between the National Commission at Delhi and the states, and basically these regional offices act as the eyes and ears of the National Commission, and the work of the National Commission is divided into several departments or wings. There is on the one hand administration and establishment wing, and there is a economic and social development wing, and there is a service safeguards and coordination wing, and fourthly there is an atrocities wing. First let us look at the atrocities wing. We are aware of the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, Atrocities Prevention Act of 1986. Rules have been framed under these Atrocities Act, which have been recently modified. The National Commission is required to take up individual complaints in relation to the atrocities faced by tribals and take them up with the concerned police officers and also monitor whether proper redressal has been done or not. Under this atrocities wing, the National Commission also checks complaints relating to Bonded Labor Abolition Act faced by persons belonging to tribals, communities, or non-implementation of the Minimum Wages Act. Now let us turn our attention to the Service Safeguards and Coordination Wing. As you are aware of, the Constitution of India has provided for affirmative action by the state. There is a reservation policy, and when tribals have complaints in relation to the implementation of the reservation policy, these complaints are taken up by this under the Service Safeguards and Coordination Wing, and all related complaints relating to implementation of reservation are handled there. The Economic and Social Development Wing looks at the implementation of the tribal sub-plan by the ministries at the Government of India or the ministries concerned in the states, and whether these things are being properly implemented or not. It asks for reports through questionnaires. It also conducts detailed reviews with these authorities to see that the developmental plans reach tribals. This wing is also responsible for various land reform acts and also the making recommendations for educational development of tribals. The Admin and Establishment Wing, as its name suggests, handles all issues relating to the staffing, budgetary issues of the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. In conclusion, we have seen the definition of tribals, we have seen the human rights challenges faced by the tribals, we have seen the background to the establishment of the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes, we have also seen the complaints mechanism, we have also seen the working or organizational structure of the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. We will see the issues relating to tribal in further detail in the coming module. Thank you.